Hello peeps, it's Duncan again with Freeze Eagle on a beautiful Saturday. I was going to say morning, it's more like 1:30 maybe. Excuse me. But anyway, my son-in-law came up to help me. We put a few hours in this morning, and Al and I got a few hours in yesterday and got set up the day before. So I just wanted to update you on the progress with the roof. Last video I actually had taken it and I thought I had uploaded it, but I hadn't completed the process, so it sat for a couple days before I posted it. So it seems like sudden progress here. It's been a few days, but enjoying some beautiful leaf peeping and views. Lately it's actually pretty nice up here by the A-frame. Got some nice early day kind of light coming through the trees. Yeah, the sun's peeking through up there. Absolutely beautiful. Even here, even though the color theme is limited to yellows and pale greens mostly, it's not bad out at all. So anyway, excuse me, I just wanted to give you a quick update. We've actually gotten some roofing on. Last video we talked about the pulley system, and then Al and I installed it a couple of days ago. And at first we did have moments of doubt. We were starting to set this up and we didn't have any weight on it yet. We were just attached the ropes to these little sled devices, and early on it seemed like because of the length of the rope going up to the ridge, these things could tip back easily, and we got a little nervous. In fact, we actually contemplated just bailing out of it, putting up ladders, but we kind of came to the realization that this was the R&D part of the job, and that we really needed to get, make the full attempt in order to find out what we did wrong, if anything, and whether it could be salvaged. And to our great satisfaction, we discovered that by the time we actually attached all of these things, you can see the rope had to be anchored. These are various anchor points that were created underneath those hardware that allowed us to kind of wrap the rope back and forth between some bolts in order to create friction so nothing would slip and slide, because there's some serious tension and weight on these. But anyway, 5 different points of anchorage for 5 different ropes. This one we tied into a part of the wooden frame of the window, which is quite sturdy. So as you can see, if we look up here, you'll see the rope goes up to these pulleys, back down to each of these sleds. And what we ended up doing, these were down close to the ground when we first set them up, and we got everything hooked up and we pulled it up so that we could get tension on all of them, have them up just off the ground where they were even. And then we put the 2x12, it's actually a 28-foot board, this piece of wood you see on this, the walkboard, 28 feet long, is just about right to go all the way from the dormer out to the end. The benefit being, as this thing goes up the roof, it allows us to access the ever-increasing angled overhang. You can see that overhang as it goes up is getting further and further away. So we needed a way to deal with that. So it's a little bit of a lean out when you get way up there, but we'll deal with that when we get to it. But the beautiful thing about it is we put the lower courses on just standing here, and then some more off step ladders, and then this system allowed us to go all the way up. And it's actually, once we put that walkboard on though and bolted it down to all these sleds and then loaded probably 300 or 400 pounds of roofing on it, we just took some of these bundles and laid them out on the walkboard system. At my age now, I can split the bundles in half. I just grab a half a bundle under my arm, walk up there, slap it down on the walkboard. So we had them out evenly laid across this. And the great thing was that took the slack out of the ropes. These are nylon ropes. They're not rigid like the old manila ropes where they had no give. These have some give, so it gives them added strength in terms of they can absorb some shock. But the nice thing was, once we loaded this thing up, the slack went out of the ropes, got up on there on the ladder, and it was just as stable as it can be. It didn't lean back, it didn't rock and roll, and it was kind of pinned to the roof, so it worked beautifully. So we were able to work our way up to where we are now. And the next thing we're going to end up doing is we're going to go up a little further, probably remove the walkboards that are out near the dormer, go up a little further, and then we're actually going to roof the dormer and get that out of the way before we continue. So you can see, I'll give you a little tiny bit of detail. So when you start the roofing at the bottom, we have this stuff called starter course. Some people just cut pieces off the shingles, but it kind of wastes shingles, so I bought some starter strips, which I'll go over here and show you. These just make this much easier and more efficient instead of wasting actual shingles, cutting them up to get these starter pieces. These are something you just buy in a bundle. Board out of the way. So these come in the size of a shingle. You just bend them back and forth a few times. They snap off, and then these have the glue strip on the bottom. It's a tar strip. And when the roofing is set down, top of these starters, this melts as soon as you get any amount of heat on the roof, and then the lower part of the shingle will stick to this. And then all the shingles have a similar part on the bottom, or rather the top of each one once you get going. Then they lap onto a tar strip, and then over time the sun hits them, and the roof, if it's done right, will become almost a unified sheet because of this glue or tar that will melt up and bond. So in the end you get a very, very strong roof. These things will stick together. And then this roofing actually has this nailing strip, and it's very rugged. It's almost like it's fiberglass or Kevlar or something. And my son-in-law was a professional roofer. He's doing other things now, but he knows exactly what he's doing. He's very efficient, and he helped out getting a lot of these shingles on so far. And his method that he learned is really efficient. When you put down these shingles, these are 39.5 inches long, and you do a thing where you create a starter course. So you have an 8-inch piece, a 16-inch piece, roughly 24, and then you go out to your full length, and you start with a smaller one, and then as you work your way back, so that you say you put a full course down, then you put this little guy, or actually this next largest, work your way back, and then as you sweep from left to right, that's the direction you're going in, then you get this 8-inch step off. And it's very efficient because you don't want the breaks one over another. You'd have leakage resulting. So the way a roof is done is you want every break covered by the next course, so that you've got an overlap factor here. So the shingle that crosses this, water, even though it gets in here, by the time it does, it's actually on the next shingle, so it maintains its water repellency. And then step flashing is used along these valley-like areas. And what you do with the step flashing is every single course you put a piece of step flashing so the water's guided onto the one below. And the reason you don't just put one continuous piece, which would be tempting and seem like it would be logical, if you had one piece of flashing all the way from top to bottom, water could kind of get in a little bit under it, and then over the course of distance it could spread and spread until it dropped beyond the narrow. This step flashing is only a few inches wide, so the water would work its way over. If it were a heavy amount of rain that were coursing down the roof, it would sneak over and get around the flashing eventually. So the step flashing actually guides the water onto the next shingle, which is over another piece of step flashing. And the continuous repetition of this, the water never has enough distance to work its way beyond where that step flashing would protect it. So it works excellently if you do it properly. Then you get little areas like this that get tricky at the bottom of a wall, say a wall joining a roof. This looks a little funny. Eventually be siding going over this, but this actually is flashed onto this piece, which goes out over this. Siding will eventually be on this, and we'll probably add some extra protection in there just to be safe. And then of course you see ice and water shield under there, kind of acting as a continual barrier. So if water got under any of the step flashing, this would carry it, and it would have quite a ways to go to get beyond any of it. And of course the last two courses are all ice and water shield, so we're trying to build in enough overkill, so if we make a mistake in any given area, it might be compensated for by what we did in another. And you see the same thing here. Going up this wall, we have the ice and water going quite a bit of the ways up. I meant to extend it all the way up, but I'll put another piece down overlapping that step flashing there to be a little extra protection. But so this is a good start on the roofing. This only represents I don't know, 5 or 6 hours of actual roofing, but of course setting this whole apparatus up took at least that long. But in the end, it will be quite worth it. It's very secure. When you get up there and you have that ladder behind you, you can work without feeling too vulnerable. Out on the end by the ladder, you got to be a little careful. You're working under and around the ladder, but generally speaking, this is a pretty safe way to go. And we're kind of emphasizing safety because You know, all it takes is one accident and the whole job takes on a very dark flavor you don't want. So being very careful and taking our time, it's always the best protection you're going to have, is just being really careful and building in some safety factors to prevent anything from happening. So far this has been a pretty happy project, and we hope it stays that way. Anyway, wanted to give you a little taste of what this is going to look like. I'm really happy with the roofing. I wanted to get something green that would blend in. It's sort of foresty looking, and I think this is going to do the job. That's kind of nice muted color. Because I see the end of the building more than the sides, but the side of the dormer will make it less conspicuous, and then the front will be log siding eventually, which probably be a kind of brown, similar to the way this Doug fir looks. I love the way the Doug fir looks. And then I may have shown you on the last video the fascias, but it was very nice to get all this blocking done and then these fascias on, because that allows that application of the drip edge and the roofing. You kind of have to have that on there in order to continue with the roofing. You can see the drip edge. That's the thing that goes on top of the, I mean, usually it's good to put it under the tar paper or whatever, but it doesn't really matter terribly much. As long as it's on there, that metal drip edge strengthens the edge of the roof a bit, helps guide water away. You know, you see if water tries to get out over the edge, it'll run down the drip edge and go away. So we will continue with this, probably even tomorrow, get a couple hours in and begin to use up some of this roofing. It's a good Owens Corning product, which has a 130 mile an hour wind resistance guarantee on it, which is pretty nice. So we've got 2 pallets of this roofing, which represents 30 square, which I estimated this would take. This quite a large roof area. But the nice thing is, roofing is less maintenance than walls and windows. And walls and windows will be limited to the ends and to the dormers. So it's actually kind of a nice low maintenance exterior. Back over to the other side now just to look up on this. Anyway, hope you found that all informative, and we will be back in touch when we get a little further along. Have a good day.